All right.
Yeah, let's jump in. So you are at an incredible point in your music journey.
As I've been saying for the past 2 years, Fantasia is definitely gonna be my business card to upgrade the levels. So um, I've put many hours into this project, from like the production to mixing to um, looking for the team and recording and the features and looking for PR and for radio and um, managing social media, everything. uh, I've managed to kind of get a full grip on the whole project since early on, of course. So it's it's my baby, and I'm happy that I'm happy that it's finally coming out in three 2 weeks in 2 weeks. So yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, no, and I've given it a listen and it's absolutely fantastic. There's something really special that you've captured in the way that you bring these things together, from your influences to the people that you've chosen for features, and the end product is just absolutely fantastic. So I'm excited for you. It's a fun point to see you out in the world. Yeah. I know you started playing piano and saxophone when you were younger. So how did you decide to stick with those instruments as you developed your musical tastes?
Um, because I think having started with those with sax and piano, like those are my main. Saxophone is my main instrument, and then I was lucky enough to study piano as well on the side, and and so I believe, like, for composing music, it's either you must either piano or guitar, um, and for making music in general. So since I had piano, I decided to just stick with piano and saxophone, and then I started studying bass guitar a few
Mm.
years later. So I started bass when I was 16, 16, 17. So yeah, piano and sax from 9 years old, and bass a little bit later. But uh, yeah, I guess I think also because of like how my music is as well. There's a lot of jazz in it, and then I managed to just mix it with pop and electronic music, which is basically, in pop, electronic is what's going on the most, like, right now, I think. So yeah, it was just like the easiest way really for me to kind of merge the two words, like classical world where I literally grew up in, and then after I started to kind of look around and see what was actually going on, and I found out about electronic music and hip hop. That's how I decided to make the two worlds collide, basically.
No, it's fun. And I think there's something special about the electronic aspect because it's so different. Obviously, like you said, the other instruments are more classical and they come from different worlds, but you bring them together in a way that's really special. And it shows your capability and your technique that you really put every single ounce of yourself into the creation, from, like you said, from beginning to end. Do you have a favorite part of your creative process?
Chords,
Chords?
probably. Chords are, yeah, chords are my favorite thing. Um, every track of mine has chords, and a very interesting chord progression. And I think, um, yeah, that's the part where I just have the most fun, really, when I just like lay down a chord progression, and then because it's something I'm gonna have to listen to for many hours, like throughout the whole, you know, the whole process of composing the track. Those chords are gonna have to be played the whole time, so I really have to love them, and that's why, like, I also think is the part where I spend the most time on, because yeah, chords are key, at least for my music. They should be key for everyone, but you know, sometimes are overlooked, which is a bit meh. But yeah, for me, are essential, really.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes your music so rich, and the layering and the thought process that goes into it. Do you enjoy, obviously you're very collaborative, and it shows in the album itself, and it also shows in the way you present yourself on social media with those videos you make, that they're fantastic. It's really fun to see that process. How
Thanks.
how did you choose the people that you had featuring on this project?
So first of all, there has to be mutual respect. So I do not care about big features if those artists are, you know, not good human beings. You know what I mean? Like, they have to be they have to be on point on that level first. I don't care if you have 300,000 monthly listeners and then you're an asshole. You get me?
Yeah.
I do not care. So, me, the most important thing is that we are on the same level, on the same, how do you say, we're on the same page on the human level first, and then of course you have to be sick. So all the artists that are featured on Fantasia are all amazing singers and musicians, from, you know, the Palmaria duo to Te Imogen and Bakari and Counterflight, like, and DJs B. Like, they're all fantastic, and they're also fantastic human beings. Like, they're close friends of mine, all of them. So that's the first and most important prerequisite that an artist has to be. Like, I think it should be like that for everyone, but you know, it is like the industry is so toxic that it is not really. And then you hear these stories where, you know, like, there are artists that were featured but then they weren't paid their royalties because, you know, managers or labels or whatever. Like, yeah, if possible, I would like to keep everything on myself, you know, so I can manage everything and make sure that everyone gets paid, you know, what they're owed. So that's definitely the first criteria, the most important. And then you know, when we have like similar influences, so like we listen to the same artist and we are influenced by the same, like, we listen to the same music and or very similar music, and we just vibe off, you know, ideas, bounce back ideas back and forth, you know, and we're just like, it's also pretty natural, you know, like, I feel like making music has to be very natural. If it's not, like, if it's forced even in the slightest, like, it's not really how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think that that chemistry shows, and I also think that that's where it's so important for you at this stage of your career. And I love working with artists that are just about to release something to the world, because you own every single part of the process and you own how it goes live. And I think there's something very important to that. Like you said, the industry, you know, takes a cut here, there, the other ways, and I think it really has an impact on the art. And so it's really special that you're able to maintain that for yourself throughout.
It's hella hard though.
Yeah.
It's very it's very hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least now, because it's literally early days, it's still the beginning of my career. So having to deal with everything myself has been a challenge for sure. But don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I'm grateful because I've learned a lot. Um, I've really learned a lot. So I feel blessed anyway, because releasing this album on my own, it's literally like I learn something new every day for the past 8 months. since I started like building up the campaign. So it was really needed as well, because as an artist you need to keep evolving all the time. Otherwise, if you get stuck, your art is gonna get stuck too, and you don't know, you don't want that, right? So I'm sure after the whole campaign is done, I'm gonna get back into writing and producing. It's gonna be a whole different energy that wasn't there before. So yeah, it's a win in every on every, how'd you say, it's a win on every side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it's harder, at this point, you're going to know when you walk into a situation further down the road, you'll have done it yourself. So you'll know when people are making decisions that may not be in your best interest. So this really leads up to when you are very, very huge, which I'm assuming that you will be after this release comes out, you know. What moment working up to the release of this project, has there been any media coverage or outreach from other artists that made you go, wow, this is happening, and this is because I made something special?
I felt very relieved after I closed the campaign. So I finalized like the team, and everyone was on board and everything was settled, like the budget and everything. I was so blessed as well to have received a grant from Help Musicians later last year, about like, yeah, it was like November, end of November. And they really helped me a lot financially to put this album together as well. So that was maybe the first moment where I was like, wow, okay, I'm getting backed off financially by a, you know, Arts Council of England, which is like the most important company organization in the country for supporting, you know, up and coming independent musicians and artists. So that was probably the first moment. And then a few months later, when I finally, you know, closed the campaign and the team was set, everyone was on board, and as I said, like the budget and everything, the music was ready. Like I think November last year, and then June of this year, 100%. Yeah.
No, it's exciting to hear, and I know it can be a long uphill when you're creating something, so it's always really satisfying to have it recognized. I think the way that you put the album together really speaks to your ability to weave people through a story and who you are as an artist and a musician. You start with Fantasia, which is the album's namesake, and I think you weave your features in through like the peak and the body of the work, and then you sum it up with Tide, which I think is just such a beautiful culmination of all of the music that you made. And it's my favorite track, I have to say, because it really shows you, like shows who you are, and who you are like from the beginning when when you press play and you go all the way through the end, you reach this point, it really shows how you've grown throughout your journey. If you're going to like walk away having learned something about yourself that you'll carry into future projects, because there's a progression from within. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Fantasia, as I conceive the concept, Fantasia is going to be like a series of albums. So this is just the first one, but the plan that I have for it is, because I want to start like touring as well with my music eventually, and as I tour, you know, getting to know more and more artists from, you know, all around the world, and then making new music with them. And, you know, that's how I want to build, you know, the next albums. So it's just like, think of Fantasia as like a bubble around me where I just attract, like my safe space, right? Where I just attract like-minded musicians, and their sound gravitates around mine. So I just attract them towards this world, and we just make the most beautiful music that we can together. And that's just the concept that I have of Fantasia. So I feel like maybe making the first one definitely made me realize what I really wanted it to be, like what I'm really after, with this whole big project. But yeah,
How
pretty much.
many how many future albums do you see being a part of the Fantasia project?
Well, at least two more. So I want it to be a trilogy at least. So yeah, we'll see.
And why did you name it Fantasia?
So that comes from the Disney movie that I was really hooked up with when I was a kid. And then during the pandemic, because it was, we were all stuck at home with a lot of free time. But of course, like I kept myself busy. And I came out with 2 EPs and a whole album. And after that, and that was only in the first 6 months. So in the first 6 months, I closed an album and 2 EPs, right? And after those 6 months, so like September, October of last year, I was applying for the grant and trying to figure out what to do with these 10 tracks that I had. And I also started gaming again, after 10 years of like, because when I started making beats back in 2011, and when I got my first Macintosh and with GarageBand and I started making music, I sold all my video games because like, fuck this, like I don't have time for this anymore. But then it's so funny that 10 years later, being stuck at home and, as I said, with a lot more free time than usual, I just started gaming again. And the whole experience kind of made me think of, what actually my music, a lot of the inspiration of my music comes from. Because back when I was like five or six, which is when I started playing video games, that was, apart from like jazz and fusion, which was mainly what my parents used to play, apart from classical. So in the house, if they put a record on, it would have been either classical music or jazz and fusion. So like Miles Davis, like the classics, of course, but then also Weather Report and Pat Metheny and Yellow Jackets and, all those like amazing groups. So that was the music that if it wasn't classical, that was the other music that I would hear, or music from video games, because that's what I was playing at the time, and there wasn't really any other pop music going around because my parents were not really playing that because they're both like classical musicians. So that was the only pop music that I started listening to, basically. So music from like Nintendo games. I'm a big Nintendo head. So and that's when I figured out basically where my music actually comes from. It's like a big mix. And then of course when I was about like 13 to 14 and I went to high school, and that's where I found out about electronic and hip hop and that whole other side that I did not know about. I didn't have any big brother playing stuff for me because I'm an only child, so it was a weird not a weird, but like that was my upbringing basically. So yeah.
Do you feel like because the projects were developed during the pandemic, you had the time to focus and really develop, or do you think it would have been different if you created the album out in the world just on a regular schedule?
It would have been very, very different would have been very, very different. Yeah, I wouldn't really know what it would have been, you know, if it wasn't, if we were in a pandemic, like if we were not locked at home or anything like that, it would have been very different. Maybe better, maybe worse. Who knows?
I mean, I think that time to just really sit with yourself and, like you said, rediscover things or interests that you had when you were younger and see how that influences the work you're doing now. You know, there's something, even though there was a lot of hardship during the pandemic, there's also a lot of beautiful things that were made, you know. And I think you'll see, you know, with the next project, now that things are opening back up, you'll see how other influences could come into your sphere of creation, because you'll have more stimuli and more, you know, places to go and people to see. But do you have was there a moment when you were creating the 10 songs that went into this album that you really stretched your capabilities as a musician? Was there a point where you really hit a new level to your artistry?
When I made Whispers,
Mm.
I feel like Whispers is the best instrumental I've ever made to this day. And when I made it, I remember when I made it, I was like, I could not believe it. I literally could not believe it. I was like, wow, okay. Like I don't really gas myself usually this much, but when I made that track, I was like, wow, this is something else. This is definitely going into the record. Like 100%. Yeah, it's just like the whole track, like the melody and the chords and the saxophone and the house drum, you know, the house beat and the different chord progression halfway, the whole arrangement, you know, the solo at the end, like it's everything about it. It's just like, it's one of my favorite tunes ever. That's when I think I definitely leveled up when I made that track. 100%.
And that chord progression in Whispers, when it changes, the energy switches about partway through the song. That is what made me go, wow, this is something really special, you know, because I read through like a list of artists to write about, or, you know, people that, you know, where could potentially cover. And I heard that and I was like, this is something really different and exciting and unexpected. And the way you end it with the saxophone too, there's something so enticing about that instrument, and then fusing it with house is just, it's so fun, because those are two things that you wouldn't necessarily put together. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. It's that's my philosophy as well as an artist. Like, you need to push boundaries. You need to. I feel like there are new genres popping up here and there. Like the last one, South African, like Amapiano. That's definitely something new. But it was still a mixture of genres. So it was a new sub genre, if you want to call it like that. That's what I believe, at least. But it's like a mixture of like African music, proper African music with house, like, and that's how Amapiano was born. So I think everything was discovered in music, you know, everything was already made. The only key to move forward right now is to mix what was already made, right? So my philosophy in music is just like pushing boundaries to create something new by mixing, crossing over genres. And that's why my music sounds like this, and I do what I do. because yeah, mixing genre is the key. That's what I believe.
Yeah. And you also, you include house, obviously, in all of the tracks. You include the saxophone and that classical element, but what was unexpected to me was the hip hop that you also were able to infuse. And I think, you know, that feature was really special with Can't Stop, because you fused, you like included another element to it. You know, you didn't just stop at house and jazz and those influences. You brought in hip hop as well, and you executed it in a way that really felt true to the genre and true to the artist that you collaborated with on that track. Did that feel,
Yeah.
did that feel like a specific moment too, where you were like, I'm pushing even further? Or was it just for fun?
Um, so I started working with DJ back in like last year during the pandemic, and we're just like blasting out, you know, tracks like back and forth. And I produced a tune on their album 2020, the album last year. And then I was like, you know, I'm actually making a record myself. And I send them like a few beats, and they just picked that one. But again, like it's so different from everything else, because I wanted the album to be like that, as eclectic as it could be. Like, you know, like the first tune is an instrumental, the second tune is like house music, the third tune is pure R&B, right? Then there's cicadas, which is like future beats, Flying Lotus kind of thing, like weird shit. Then somebody new is like the pop, alternative pop and jazz kind of track. And there's Chosen Ones that is like, the beat is like future beats again, but then Bakari on top is like, it's almost like grime, you know. He's a UK based singer, so he can rap, but he can sing as well. So there's like the chorus is grime. Couldn't want to really know about my life, couldn't really know about my life. And then when it goes to the verse, it's like singing. So it's back into like soul music, right? Like R&B and soul. And there's Triumph, which is like a trap and jazz. So that's like from Masego and FKJ. And then Mind Games is another like proper house tunes. And then Can't Stop is like boom bap. So back to the origin, like boom bap, old school. But that's just the drums, because then on top there's like synths that weren't really used back then. So I mix like the sound from today with like some old school drums, and then Tide that closes off everything together. But as you see, like at least 7 or 8 genres are included in this record, and that's what I wanna really achieve, you know, because the more genres you include, the more people you're likely to hit in some way, you know, because people listen to many to different music, but why would you stick to one when there's so many that you can experiment with, right?
Right. And I think the way that you put this together, there's an element of it's all you. And I keep saying that because it's, I can listen to a song and know that you created it, regardless of what genre you're pulling from or who's featuring in it, or if there's something, you know, unexpected. It's all in the world. Like you said, it's all comes from you, and it comes from your ability to pull all these things together and present it and be like, here it is. And you know, it's a really fun creation. Is there something that you're most proud of?
Most proud of the record?
Yeah, either the process or like something unexpected that happened while you were working on it, or the record itself. Like, is there the thing that you are most proud of and taking away from this?
Probably just how I managed to make everything work, you know, the campaign in general, because the music itself is just 20% of everything. Like what I'm probably most proud of is like having like managed to pull the whole thing off, you know, and not mess up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the 10,000 things that I had to think about to keep in mind. So that's probably, yeah, what I'm most proud of. Of course, the music is the most important thing, but there's so much that I had to add to that to make it work. And it's not that I wasn't aware of it, because I knew what I was walking into. It's just once you're in it and you're doing it, that's different, right?
Yeah. Is there something that you would tell younger creatives or younger musicians as they're starting out, as like something you would have liked to learn or be told from a more experienced artist when you were beginning?
Mm, focus on if you're just starting, but actually not really. At any point, just focus on the music. Like the music has to be good. That has to be amazing. Then everything else, you'll build everything else around it. But first, music has to be exceptional, you know. And so don't waste time on social media, or, you know, even just because you have to be on it, that doesn't mean that you need to spend so much time on it. Like, I personally, I prefer to just spend time on making music rather than, you know, trying to be active on socials or look what others are doing. Like, just focus on you. And if you want to look at what other people are doing, just you want to do it, just do it. But just to get inspiration and be inspired, you know, like, but by what other artists are releasing music, or look at the campaign, like how they handle the campaign, singles, and then the album, how long in between singles, if they release the video, like how the artwork is related to the concept, or what the features are, or what kind of content they release to support the campaign. Like, but most important thing, just focus on the music. Just make the music. We're musicians, so make the music.
I love it. I love it. What are you going to do the day of the release for yourself?
Uh, what am I doing the day of the release? Working on the release. I don't know if you were expecting something like take the day off or some shit like that, but nah, not happening. No, I'll probably, yeah, be working on everything, still pitching, sending it out to friends and, you know, DJs, and pretty much, yeah. Enjoy the process, you know? Enjoy the release as much as I can.
Yeah. I think, it's going to be an exciting day for you, whether you're still working on it, which makes it even sweeter, but it'll feel really good when it goes live to the rest of the world, because it's an absolutely beautiful album, and I'm excited for you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.